And in Tibet, China continues its decades-long policies of aggressively interfering with Tibetan Buddhist practices and Tibetan culture. Domestic and overseas restrictions on both lay people and Tibetan Buddhist monastics hinder traditional religious pilgrimages. Chinese authorities have banned Tibetan children from participating in religious activities. They've forced thousands of monks and nuns out of their homes and destroyed their monasteries. Indeed, speculation exists that the Communist Party in China will attempt to appoint the next Dalai Lama. The international community must unequivocally insist that members of the Tibetan community, like members of all faith communities, should be able to select and revere their religious leaders without government interference. In a few moments, we'll hear from an incredible young woman, Nyima Lhamo. Nyima Lhamo is a human rights advocate and the niece of the late Tenzin Delek Rinpoche, a highly revered reincarnate Lama and one of the most prominent Tibetan political prisoners who died in a Chinese prison in July of 2015. Recognized by His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, as a reincarnated Lama in the 1980s, the Rinpoche was a community leader and a staunch advocate for the protection and preservation of Tibetan culture and religion for decades. In 2002, the Rinpoche was arrested on false charges of exploding bombs and distributing dissident propaganda. His trial was held in secret, and even though he had no independent legal counsel and no real evidence against him, he received a death sentence. The sentence was later commuted to life in prison, where he remained until his death. As a result of Nyima Lhamo publicly questioning the cause of her uncle's death and demanding an investigation, she too was detained by Chinese authorities, along with her mother. Nyima Lhamo subsequently fled Tibet, leaving behind her mother and her 6-year-old daughter. Despite the risks, Nyima Lhamo continues to speak out about her uncle's death, appealing to the international community to prevail upon the Chinese government to carry out a thorough investigation. Her family continues to face harassment. Chinese authorities have threatened to persecute her family if she continues to advocate for transparency, accountability, and her God-given right to worship freely. She's here today, despite this threat. The Chinese Communist Party has clearly underestimated this courageous young woman. Please join me in welcoming Nyima Lhamo.
Good morning.
Tari Sunduki Chabudi Tole, Pemiche de Rounda, Misegi, Tenzin Delek Rinpoche Kola Hijiwangala, Kokanawala, Tamalola, Tujichi.
At onset, I would like to thank Ambassador Gingrich for this introduction, and I would like to thank everybody, the State Department and the organizers for inviting me here to speak at this important conference about Tibetan religious freedom.
Tenzin Delek Rinpoche na pu shashulu yubi Jango Rinpoche nganzizo lamachri da koina Jango Rinpoche kasuji ruba pu gi chue da region la chale mobo na tanachi chadure.
As you heard just now, Tenzin Delek Rinpoche is somebody who was recognized by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. He is from Eastern Tibet, and in addition to his religious task, he also was very much active in social work in the community.
Today in the Jana Juntela Gomari, Mani Kauzor, Nitu Nilola, Rumbachinda, Kungchale, Los Terunica, and Juzutire.
It's because of this that the Chinese government was fearful of him, and therefore they detained Rinpoche and his assistant Lobsang Tundo.
Nani Jirayumar Rumbuchi, Nitu Salone, Tetsungo, Sota de Jiri, Nitunga Lone, Tetsola Jibri.
And as mentioned earlier, subsequently they were first sentenced to death, and then that was for Rinpoche, it was commuted to a life sentence in 2005.
Nitu Golone Danya 2 years ago, then Satan, the Jana Jung, Gochi Gaisala, Pinata, Rumbuching, Chen the Nani, Manika user, the Chen the Chenkan Gomala Shigul and the Java Horizon, Jana Jung, this on my Yamit.
However, because the Tibetan people greatly valued Rinpoche's services in 2009, over 40,000 of them sent a petition to the Chinese government saying that they disagreed with the Chinese government's sentencing of Tenzin Delek Rinpoche, and they wanted the Chinese government to give him a fair trial and do a retrial.
That Rinpoche Chenkan no Ganyo Josan Seller, who you attended, Jayuki, Rinpoche, Missy Inari, get to Inari. Nomi in Sama Jana Jula, Rawa, Jada Jumba, Jordana, Rawachi, Drumate, Missimo, Dunjari, Zonkonichu, Gangi rather than Bach. Not
only that, his disciples and we, his relatives, also appealed several times for the Chinese government to provide us what was legally permissible under Chinese laws to have access to Rinpoche and to give him a fair trial. The Chinese government did not pay heed to any of our petitions.
Rubachi, Longala, Zokon Jinny, Zuni, Gasu Chami, Namada, Tamagi Hamokone, Lango, Mobuchi, Ben, Gamuchika Ching, Janagam, Beijing, the Chindu Gokala, Mogujene, Dashi, Nyedi, Chenko Gokala, Rubachi Tamad, Tuchuri, Rubachi, Ganulo Josan, Tamatubis to Arayuman.
For the first several years of his detention, we even didn't know where he was. Eventually, we learned about his imprisonment near Chengdu in Sichuan province. And then his disciples, many of the Tibetan people went there to demonstrate in support of Rinpoche. And during his 13 years of imprisonment, his family members and relatives only got opportunity for 6 times to see him.
Nidu Jangola Tamata, Robert Jangola, Duvazre, then today in the Namade Nyanya did Samage Romachi, Jana Jungo, Duvazla, Gonzich Diore.
Unfortunately, in 2015, Rinpoche died in prison. We, his family members, believe that that was a suspicious death, and we believe the Chinese authorities killed Rinpoche.
Then in the Rinpoche, Tamagi, Burgature, the regional, and Tamagi, Chubu Melon, Giago Coco, Namatala, Teyomari, Tama Rinpoche, Kudumati, Kateta, Namatomala, Teyomari.
The inhumanity of the Chinese government can be seen by the fact that even we, his relatives, were not given the opportunity to do the final rites for him according to Tibetan Buddhist tradition, nor where we made given access to his body in the last rite.
Then that's how like a chance that Rinpoche, Netan and Tane, Pernola, Chedera, Kanda Human, Samak, Deltan Hakore.
So from Tenzin Delek Rinpoche's situation, we can clearly see what is the situation of religious freedom in Tibet.
Pezona, Pechi Rinpoche in the Kuina, Jungle Rinpoche in Gonzi, on Jitunguji Kuchuanga Lola, Gonzi, Zuni, this one, Jijimeba than a child.
As was mentioned earlier, the Chinese authorities interfere actively in Tibetan Buddhist tradition, including in the issue of recognition of reincarnations. For example, in the case of the Panchen Lama, who was recognized by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the Chinese authorities detained him, and we don't know where he is right now.
Rubachi Tamatala, Amanjidikos Gars Ordulano. Najana Jugu Pemaso, Nietopates Dondo. Chikita Chidron Lama Ilaman, Chita Angelaman, Chita Angela, that day, Lana Dun, the Kuina, Turkala, Dragon, Hurricane, Tunaya Dragamando, Taricola Nani Thursday, Kutinits and Gayumari, Taricola Nani Thursday, what Jango Robichi, Kasuchi Duda, Copula Gadalan, and the Nani Third. The day he kicked Chet or Chakakoma, Silla Jose and a Hulan, a Robichi and a Canary. Then they Manituchi Lola, and Shulos Joey.
During one of the few meetings that was permitted to my family, my mother, when she met Rinpoche, he told her about the trauma that he went through under Chinese hand and how, despite there being no basis for his detention or for his persecution, he suffered greatly. And he said that he would do everything possible within his command to take his issue up in the Chinese judiciary system, and he asked us also to do whatever we can to tell the truth about his situation to the world. And therefore, in 2016, I fled Tibet, and so that I can make the world aware of Rinpoche's case. As I was listening to the proceedings yesterday and today, I began to feel that what if Rinpoche was alive today and he knew about such a conference being held here? What would it mean to him? And I'm greatly moved by this feeling that I had. At this conference, which the United States State Department is organizing, and we have participation from many countries, I wanted to take this opportunity to make some appeals, particularly based on Rinpoche's work that you have in his book here, which we have compiled, and I would like to appeal to you on some matters. First, during my 2 days of participation over here, when I looked at the participants, I had seen that we are of different colors, we have of different ethnicity, we have from different religious traditions, but we are all bound together by this solidarity about religious freedom. And therefore, I firmly believe that if we can continue with this solidarity and continue with this push for religious freedom, together we can make this world a better place. And my first appeal about Tenzin Delek Rinpoche is the case that, as we have informed you now, his death was mysterious, suspicious. The Chinese government hasn't accounted for his death, nor have they done an investigation. Therefore, they even did not give us a death certificate about Tenzin Delek Rinpoche. So we would like the international community to urge the Chinese government to account for Tenzin Delek Rinpoche's death. The Chinese, second point, the Chinese government claimed that they provide religious freedom in Tibet. If that is so, then I want the Chinese government to allow the international community to have access to Tibet, whether it's journalists, diplomats, or ordinary citizens who should have every access to go to Tibet and see the situation of the religious freedom for themselves. Religious freedom doesn't merely mean ritualistic aspects like prostrations or going around monasteries or seeing some monks and nuns out there. Religious freedom for the Tibetan Buddhism means having the opportunity for the teachers to teach and for the disciples to listen, and for this interaction of teacher and disciple to be there throughout. Unfortunately, the Chinese government doesn't allow that.
Tenzin Jibatala Jungle Rinpoche ina ge lama ngonzi kando zoyo be chendo zoyina. The Jungle Rinpoche la wondermits siji lo omari baba nongi baba jacha jala gujit hamba ina mutu yo mari mao by Jungle Rinpoche yonsi Jungle Rinpoche karul omori.
Thirdly, the issue of reincarnation system in Tibetan Buddhism is very integral to the Tibetan Buddhist practice, and it's only His Holiness the Dalai Lama who has the authority and the right to recognize reincarnations, including the next reincarnation of the Dalai Lama. You know, I believe and I know for certain that more than 90% of the Tibetans will follow whatever the Dalai Lama says and not the Chinese government.
Tenzin Abadata, Pechi Rinpoche, Jana Jungi, Tango Walla Yurtida, Bernongi, Chosin Bape Mombo Yurtendi, Zubi, Jana Jungi, Ludu Tangur, Didrika Nirek had the songi, Jana Jula.
And the fifth point is that the Panchen Lama and several Tibetan political prisoners continue to be under detention in imprisonment in China today. And we would like the international community to urge for their release. And I want to say here that if anything happens to the Panchen Lama or to the political prisoners in Tibet today, the Chinese government should be solely held responsible. And then I would like to end with these recommendations. I hope that you would continue to help support the Tibetan people. And also, I have this great responsibility that there are many people in Tibet who have the wish and the desire to go out to the world and talk about their situation. Unfortunately, they cannot do that. I have this benefit, advantage of being here, and so I look upon myself as a representative of the Tibetan people to be conveying their message to you. Finally, for a broader political solution to the issue of Tibet, religious freedom is a part of the human rights human right, also the political freedom for the Tibetan people. Therefore, I would urge the international community to help His Holiness the Dalai Lama in his effort to find a solution to the Tibetan issue. I would have many things to say about Rinpoche's situation and the case, but unfortunately we don't have much time. And so I have summarized whatever I wanted to say here today. And thank you once again for giving me this opportunity.